This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope you are able to see my screen as well as able to hear me clearly. Just
Yes,
confirm it
yes.
to me.
Good morning.
Okay,
Good morning,
that's
Manoj.
very good. Yeah. So, one protocol issue, let me tell. When you are not asking questions, you please mute your mics. And but it doesn't mean that you should not ask questions. Anytime you can interrupt me and ask questions. And in case the session is on and you are away from your computer, ensure that your mic is muted. Otherwise, it will disturb my flow as well as other learners will be disturbed because of the noise. So keep that as a protocol issue and let's get going. So hope all of you have had a chance to experiment with that NumPy exercise. Okay, so we covered NumPy pretty fast. We talked very briefly about the new data structure, that is ND array, and element-wise maths capability. And then towards the end, also we talked about the whole the library about random tools, how they can be useful for us as we do our data science work. So in case you haven't got an opportunity to experiment with us with it, please experiment. But now today we will actually start the last topic of our Python crash course. Again, today we'll talk about pandas, but then day after tomorrow on pandas we'll do an exercise based on whatever we learned today. And with that, we will close our discussion on Python for machine learning. So after that, that is from next week, we'll be fully into projects. So take this opportunity to get hands-on. Then actually, when we are doing projects, you will be much more free to type the code and understand why we are typing, what we are typing, what is happening behind the scenes. You will be able to make it a like sense there. And again, I know I have a variety of audiences also. Some people are in the development careers who actually on your day-to-day job you code, and some of you are in the QA profession, some of you are managers. I know, but everyone try to practice it, and maybe managers can understand a little bit broadly what we are doing so that in case they land in this kind of projects, they're able to guide their teams in a much better manner. So let's get going now. Today we'll talk about pandas. Okay, this is a very popular Python library for data science. In fact, when we start doing whatever we are always telling 4 projects, one library that we extensively use is actually pandas, because as I told you, in the model building kind of exercise, 80% of time is spent on uh, analyzing the data, understanding the data, cleaning the data, feature engineering, and then preparing the data that can be used to train a model and thus do some predictions. So 80% of our time in a project we'll spend on the data pre-processing part. And a tool that is very handy to do all the things that we will do is actually pandas. So we will again cover whatever we can cover, but uh, it is up to you to keep on practicing and learn more deeply about many tricks that can be done. You have to learn that way. Okay, so let's get going though. Pandas. So pandas is built on top of NumPy. So Python language, using Python language, numerical Python library has been built. On top of numerical Python library, Python community has come up with this pandas library. So lot of things that happen in NumPy will happen in pandas for a two-dimensional tables. So keep noticing that. Okay, pandas will probably be your most used library for data science. It can help you store, alter, and explore your data. And it's all called data pre-processing activities. And we spend enormous amount of time doing that. And the tool that you will be using is pandas. So the way you have to learn this is that whenever you see a complex data set, as a data scientist, anyway, you have to understand numbers, the statistics. You have to actually not only understand numbers, you have to love numbers. And based on that, you will get some questions in your mind to see the data by slicing it, dicing it, by applying some filters, grouping some important features and aggregating some statistics. All these things will come in your mind as questions. Let me see this data in this angle, or let me alter the angle and see the data in this way so that my understanding about data will improve. Because your understanding of data, if it is very good, you will be able to build a better model, because you can choose right algorithms, tune the right way the right algorithms. So you have to really get that understanding of the data. So first you have to love data. That is very important. If you are hating data, now start your journey to love data. Then when you love data, you want to see the data from variety of angles. So a question will come in your mind, and that question will have to be translated into pandas some instruction, and you have to type that, and then you have to get an output. Based on the output, you will have more questions. Then those more questions need answers. To get those answers, you have to type these pandas commands. So you have to make pandas way of thinking to understand data actually a very natural process. How will you get that natural process? When you practice, 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 and also start loving data. So again, this message is for all those who are aspiring for wonderful careers in data science, machine learning. This is my message. Start loving data and use these tools extensively. Okay, then automatically we'll love also. Fine. So let's move on. So pandas, what it really did is that pandas came up with two more new object types or data structures. Okay, so they are again built on top of NumPy ND array, but pandas came up with two very important data structures. So Python has 4 data structures we have seen. NumPy has its own. Now pandas has two very important data structures to make life easy for us as data scientists. Okay, so one object type is called pandas data frames. So this is basically the table in a two-dimensional space with column names and then rows. This is what is nothing but a typical Excel kind of table. So we can define these kind of data structures, and whatever in Excel we can do in pandas with the power of Python. Okay, so that is what really the interesting thing. So if you look at here, this is basically, hope all of you got that iris.csv file and you have already downloaded. Did you?
Yes,
Okay,
download.
because we have to be ready with that. So basically this is a just first 5 observations of our iris dataset. So if you look at it, these are columns. Okay, so each column has column name, and each horizontal things are our observations. Okay, so in machine learning terminology, we call each of these columns as features. Okay, and each of these horizontal things are our observations. Okay, and if you look at this feature sepal length is holding numerical data, float data. Okay, so basically these are numerical type features. They are holding sometimes some things will hold integer data types or sometimes float data types. So sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, all these are number oriented features. If you look at our species feature, this is actually holding categorical. These are descriptions of the flower species. Okay, so in our tables there will be features, and again based on the problem that we are solving, I call sepal length. Let's say this is the data using which I want to train and build a model which reads and understands the patterns in the sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, and I supervise it by showing what species while training. Then I can ask a new flower, I can take and tell something is 4.7, something is 3.0, 1.7, 0.1. Then I will ask a question here. So if that is a problem I am solving, this species field will become, feature will become my target variable. Anyway, we talked all of them. I am just repeating them because we'll be coming close to our things, and these are all becomes input features. Okay, or we alter the game and let's say this we make it as an input feature and we will give everything. Let's say petal width is what I want to predict by giving sepal length, sepal width, petal length and species. Then suddenly this problem will become a regression problem. So just keep that in mind. But pandas as a library looks at this Excel like table as one data structure, and lot of good things we can do. Okay, then another data type or object type or data structure, these tables are comprised of these columns, and columns are called pandas series objects. So each column we can pick it up and do a lot of things. We can define them, we can pick from a table, we can apply a lot of transformations on that without having to write any code. So pandas has come up with two data structures. One is data frame, pandas data frame, which is the full table structure, and the table is comprised of various columns, and those columns are kind of defined as pandas series objects. So they have some features, they have features. If you understand these features, you will get very easy understanding of when to use what pandas instruction and how to use from a syntax point of view. Everything you will understand very clearly. So keep in mind that pandas came up with two more data structures. One is pandas data frame, describing the whole table related features, and then that is comprised of each columns are actually nothing but pandas series objects. Are you clear? Shall I go on? Okay. Okay, fine. So key functionality will actually we'll go into the coding section very soon, because better actually we start typing and seeing. So one important thing we have to do in data science is that when we have a lot of numbers, okay, we have to get some statistics of these numbers, because data science is all about loving the numbers and making some sense out of these numbers. So some basic statistics, like in my table, how many rows are there, observations, count. For each column, what is the average in that column? Like sepal length, average here is 5.84333, whatever. Then you have the next one is standard deviation, minimum, 25th percentile, it is called Q1. Median is also called Q2 or 50th percentile. Then Q3, that is called 75th percentile. And difference between Q3 and Q1 is called interquartile range. And then max, these kind of basic statistics can be drawn. Okay, we'll talk about each of them. These are all very basic statistics we learned in our 10th class, but quickly I will review today for you. Okay, So this is one very important feature. We can understand not only the table numbers, we can automatically calculate lot of statistics and understand. Okay, so that is, again, you have to develop that statistics knowledge, and that also is important. We'll come to that. Then we have another very good feature in pandas is that I can slice and dice and view only the observations that I want to observe and build more insight into the numbers. So here, basically, you can filter using some comparison operators, or what we call Boolean masks, we call them. Okay, you can set a Boolean mask. So I'm here applying on my DF filter. Again, we'll come to that, don't worry. I'm seeing only all observations where my petal area is greater than 14. So some kind of filtering is available. And then we can do something very important step in data science, uh, is actually called feature engineering. So all columns are called features. Sometimes the raw data set will come up with some set of features, but those features are not very good to solve our problem. We may have to come up with new features from the existing features. Then we may have to do some mathematical operations and create new columns in the table. So here in the original table, this petal area is not there. But as a data scientist, to solve a classification problem, I thought actually having petal area in my feature would be far better than having only petal width and petal length. Okay. Then as soon as I get that idea, I can create a new column called petal area. How I create? I will multiply the column that is having petal width values with the values in the petal length. That's it. We don't need to write any other code. Then let's say there are a column's petal length, okay, and there is a petal width. Some numbers are here, and using these two, multiplying it, I created one more column. Let's say it has 10,000 observations. So for all 10,000, the calculation will happen and area will be populated with 10,000 observations. Okay, in a matter of seconds. So that is the how actually pandas takes care. Because how it is happening? Because pandas underneath the numpy is there, element wise maths happens, and because of that we get that kind of thing. So many more things we can do. We can do rich time series management tools. Like whenever we are having some data, there are two types of data. Okay, uh, let's say you are capturing various variables all at the same time, then we call it actually cross sectional data. Okay, so a lot of data is there, but this data uh, is captured at the same time for various variables. Okay, but at times we use something called time series data. These are more complex to analyze this data, but pandas gives very good tools for even time series management. What is time series? Any data that is dependent on time. For example, these days a lot of corona times, there is a date, and then for each date we are telling new cases. Okay, then uh, new recovered, then number of deaths. Like that, every date I'm capturing some data. So this is what we call time series data. So based on this kind of data, I can tell that if this is a trend, then by August 15th, most probably these numbers will be like this. Some projections will be done. So we deal with cross-sectional data, which is it's fairly simple. We'll only do in our projects this now. But some problems need us to analyze data that is dependent on time, and that kind of data is called time series data. And to analyze that kind of data also, pandas has solid tools. Then it has very good data cleaning, handling missing values functionality. You'll see that in the projects. You can merge and join methods. Lot of visualizations. Lot of times numbers don't make sense to us, we may have to see it in pictures. So those things are built on top of pandas using Matplotlib and Seaborn, we'll see that. And data wrangling tools, like totally transforming a particular raw data into a total new data table. You need some tools, and that kind of work is called data wrangling. In fact, in the fourth project, we will do data wrangling, because we'll get some data, but we want to totally transform to do our cluster analysis. Anyway, when it comes, we'll talk about it. So pandas is capable of doing all these things. Okay, so that is the basic features. Now let us start working on pandas on the computers now. I want everyone to, whoever is having the facility, let us start. So anyway, as soon as you want to do something, first you have to import pandas as PD. This is a very common alias. Every person does that. So we are also doing. So henceforth, whatever pandas related work we are doing, PD dot something will happen now. Okay. So first do that in your computers. Go import pandas as PD. Okay. So we will create our first table, though we will not use this in our regular life. There will be a data set, like I sent it to you, a CSV file. So you will read it and use it. But because we want to understand pandas basic functionality, we are creating here an example data frame, a table we are creating. How do we create? We use pd dot data frame. Okay. Then in that function, we pass a dictionary. Okay. A dictionary will have keys, colon, values. We are passing values in a list. So column 1 is my string that will hold the name for that column. I am actually giving values 5, 4, 3. Column underscore 2, I am passing string A, string B, string C. So that is how I am creating table. So here only one thing you have to be clear is that 5, 4, 3, the values have 3 values. The next column has A, B, C, 3 values. So you have to have same number of values. Then only it will take, otherwise it will not take. So data frames behave like highly optimized spreadsheets. Okay. One of the most common ways to create a data frame is to pass a dictionary into pd.dataframe function. Each key from the dictionary becomes the column in the data frame you are seeing here, and each value from the dictionary must have the same length, and they become the cells in each row. Let's go to our 1 minute. Okay, so let me, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Okay, so we are importing pandas as PD. Then we are building our own first data frame. Let's say one more column you want to put, then you can put, let's say that is column 3 underscore 3. Anyway, the same name we are putting. Okay, then let's say we pass a list 4, 5, 6. Okay, so anyway, column 3, what is happened? IPython
Should be comma
4.
at column 2 end.
What is it?
Column 2 end, there should be comma.
Okay. We are adding one more. So here, yeah. So we are creating such, as long as 3 values are there, then we will be okay with that. Okay. So anyway, we will not create data frames in this way, but only thing, remember that anytime you want to create an experiment with your own kind of Excel kind of table with column names and all, you can use this. Okay. So let's get back again. Okay, hope you created your first data frame. Okay, can I move on?
Yes, Madhu.
Okay. So anyway, that is not how we will do that. Now let us do some experimentation of pandas functionality on the comma separated file that I sent it to you yesterday. Okay, so let us read it into pandas and then start working on that. So pandas has handy pd.read_csv function. Okay, so just you have to pd.read_csv, give your file path name as a string and read it. And typically we always, any data frame, we are calling it as df, but if you have many data frames, many tables you are reading like that, better actually give a variable name which represents something in the data. Right now we are calling it as df. Okay, so df equal to pd.read_csv. so when I did it here, okay, I have copied on my folder and I'm just putting full folder files thing and reading it. So, and also when I do a type check on df object, it is telling it belongs to pandas.core.frame data frame. So it's a data frame type of object. Hope you have already downloaded and you also read it, because the next whatever we do will be on the iris dataset. Everyone got it?
I got it. Yeah, it is coming.
Okay. So you read your iris, because iris is a very popular that flower details and species related thing. Lot of training institutes I have seen, they use that data to teach and build models, especially classification models. But we will use much more complex data to build our projects. We are using only for understanding pandas actually. Okay, but that is a very popular data set. Okay, like the iris dataset that we just imported is a very famous dataset in machine learning. It is meant for practicing classifying 3 different species of iris flowers based on their measurements. Okay, so each flower has sepals and petals. Petals have lengths and widths. Similarly, sepal means wherever this flower is held, that is called sepal. So by measuring, we can actually tell which species does the flower belong to. Okay, so that is the data set actually. So after reading, every time once we read a new data set, and we called it as df now, few things we'll do to understand the data. First, actually we will see some first 5 records we want to see, observations. Okay, so we run on df.head. By default it will give first 5. Let's say if we want to see first 10, then df.head past 10. Okay, similarly you have another instruction called df.tail. Okay, then it will give bottom 5. Okay, these are the basically basic understanding of data, and also data doesn't have any corrupted things. So basically this is a well filled data. So if you are looking at the top 5, basically this table has 5 columns. Okay, out of these 4 columns are numeric columns, and the 5th column is actually a categorical column. Okay, so anyway, you have seen df.head, df.tail also, you see things are okay. Then I want to, let's say this has 100 columns, and I want to know each column is filled with what data type. Then actually I can use another attribute is there, df.dtypes. Okay, we can run that. Maybe let's go here. Okay, so we have brought it here, df.head we have done. Maybe let us see df.tail. Okay, we'll see the top bottom most ones. If you want to see both of them, just give a print here. Okay, keep trying all these things so basically it is an exploration of what is there in this data. Okay, not problem. There is no nans is there means not a number, means a lot of blanks are there. So there are not many blanks, everything is done. I also want to know what data types my columns belong to. So df dot d types. Okay, so it is telling me sepal underscore length is stored as a float 64. Sepal underscore width is stored as float 64. All these four of them are numerical features. The species feature is stored as object. Basically, all categorical features will be stored as object in our data frames. So we have seen that. Okay, now we have a little bit of understanding of the data. Then we can go and look for anyway the same thing. Shape also I want to see. Shape actually returns you two things. One is first is rows. Again, data frames are two-dimensional, rows and columns. So it returns a tuple always with only two elements. So the first element of the tuple is actually 150, that is rows, and 5 is the second element of the tuple that reflects your columns. Okay, and similarly, if you want to know the length means how many observations are there in my table, that will be the length, or that is the row part of your shape. Okay, you can use len function on df, or you can look at df dot shape and index by first element, that is your 150. Okay, both ways you can look at it. So type these commands. Other basic things always we do whenever we start working on tables. Okay, so I'm seeing my shape, my length of my, or how many observations are there in my table, variety of ways I can see. Okay, and the important thing, as I told you, okay, it comprises of lot of numbers. So let me actually understand the numbers from a statistics point of view. Okay, so besides seeing the shape of the data frame, you can also summarize data inside the cells as well. For example, what do you think? Let us look at what all the various statistics we'll do on this. Let's say I run this. Okay, on my data frame, I'm running a function min. What do you think will happen? So my data frame has 5 columns and 5 features are there. On that, I'm actually running a dot min function. What do you think will be the output?
It will give minimum from all the columns.
Yes, absolutely. It will do for the whole table, every column, it will find out the mins and gives you. Okay, species is a categorical feature. So it has done from an alphabetical point of view and created a minimum for us. But otherwise, these are numbers. So it has given that. Similarly, if you do tf.max, so that is very good thing about every column maxes, column mins, column standard deviations, column medians, column q1s, q3s, all that kind of statistics you can calculate very easily to build more understanding about the data sets. So there is a very useful function in our pandas on your data frame, whatever is that, you run this dot describe. Then what it does, by default, it picks up all the columns that are numerical columns and does the basic statistics. How many observations are there? That is count. What is the average of that column? Mean. What is the standard deviation of that column? Again, we have to understand what is standard deviation, why is it useful. Then what is the minimum value in that column? What is the 25th percentile of that column, or Q1 we call it. Then 50th percentile is also called median. Okay, 75th percentile is called Q3, and max. These are the basic statistics calculated for all numerical fields, and it will give you. Okay, so that is what it does. So I'm running the same thing again. So it did it. Okay, so I wanted to see all of them at once. Okay, so I got all the statistics. Now, like by default, df dot describe will actually calculate only for the numerical features, because all these statistics are relevant and pertinent to only numeric fields. Okay, so if you are interested to do on the, because in our table right now only one feature, species, is only categorical, but in large tables there will be a lot of fields with object type. You want to do a little bit of statistics of those things, because standard deviation, 25th percentile, all those kind of things are not applicable for numbers, non-numbers. So let us always, you have to filter it with include equal to object types. Then it will throw different kind of statistics. Again, count is same thing. 150 observations are there, so nothing is blank. At least we know all species are mentioned. Unique, whatever values are there, 150 repeated things are there, but out of that only 3 unique descriptions are used, like Virginica, versicolor, and the third species. Okay, 3 species are there. And top is setosa. What is top here? Top is the actually mode, statistical terms mode, more frequently coming field is called. So for actually the categorical features, you have mode. Okay, how many times this mode is occurring? 50 times. Out of 150, setosa is 50 times, something like that. You have to understand. Okay, so let us maybe go back. And so did you do this? Have you seen your statistics for your table? Those who have the table and all that.
Yeah, it is coming same.
Yes, Madhu.
Okay, you can see for your object category column also, you will get different statistics. But again, pandas calculates all these things. It throws you numbers, and as technical folks will be very happy also. Something worked, but that is not all about it. Actually, we have to take a pause, look at the numbers, and try to understand something in the data. That is all about actually data science, and pandas is just a tool for you. Okay, so anyway, these are descriptive statistics, and let us maybe let me insert a new slide. Okay, let us actually quickly understand, though they are 10th class things, especially interquartile range and standard deviation, and how those numbers will be useful for us to find something called outliers, or we have to perform something called outlier analysis, because sometimes when in your data there are outliers, then your models, that those outliers will cause the problem of overfitting at times. Okay, so that is why we have to understand. So maybe I will take a little bit of deviation and do some calculations. I know most of you may be knowing, but for our discussions, as we look at the numbers and start making some comments on those numbers, let us all be in the same page. So at least basic calculations, how they are calculated and how they will be used, let me explain. So let us say I have some numbers. I have a number 5, then 2, 7, 6, 4, 18, 0. I have 7 numbers. Okay, 18, it's not here, 18 and 0, 7 numbers. So each statistic, let us understand. All of us very easily understand what is mean. Mean is nothing but you add all of the things, 5 plus 2 plus 7 plus 6 plus 4 plus 18 plus 0 and divided by how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So 7, 14, 20, 24, 32, 42 by 7, that is equal to 6. So my mean is equal to 6, average of that. It's a very simple thing. Then there is another metric statistics. We always, two ways we understand centers of the data. Mean is one way, but another way is called median. Okay. So how do we look at median? To find out what is the median value of this data, we have to organize this data into ascending order. Let's say it is starting with 0, 2, after that 4, after that 5, after that 6, after that 7, after that 18. So I reordered these 7 numbers in an ascending order, and anyway this is having odd numbers. So basically the middle number, 3 this side and 3 on the other side, there is one single middle number is there. Okay, and that is actually my median. So median for this number is 5, mean for these numbers is median is 5 and mean is 6. Okay, also median sometimes is called Q2. Okay, this is the middle value, it's called Q2. Okay, then there are two other things you have to find, that is actually Q1, 25th percentile, and so Q2 is also called 50th percentile. Okay, 50th percentile value. So for outlier analysis, sometimes people have to understand what is interquartile range, and each observation in that series, where within the how far from the interquartile those numbers are falling. Based on that, some outlier analysis can be done. That's why this Q1 and Q3 also are important. So what is Q1? To the left of the Q2, I have 3 numbers, and middle of that number, that is 2, is my Q3. So median is also Q2. My Q1 or 25th percentile is 2. And what is my Q3? Is to the right of my data, the middle number, again median number, is my Q3, that is actually 7. Okay, so from that we come to that interquartile range, or IQR is nothing but your Q3 minus Q1, that is actually 5. Okay, so 5 is my interquartile range. So what are now what are my outliers, potential outliers? So outliers from an interquartile range point of view, from median understanding point of view, like any value, if it is falling Q1, okay, that is your 25th percentile, minus 1.5 times your IQR, can be on the left side. Any value is there, we can consider it as an outlier. Similarly, on the right side, Q3 plus 1.5 times of your IQR, any value, if it is falling, then it is an outlier. So if you look at from our data 5, 2, 7, 6, 4, 18, 0, 18, and let's say what are the things. So basically Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR. IQR is my 5. That is actually Q1 is 2 minus 7.5. So minus 5.5. If it is there below that, definitely that is an outlier. Similarly, on the positive side, Q3 is my 7 plus my whatever 7.5. 1.5 times IQR. This is 14.5. Anything above 14.5 for this type of statistical data, that can be a potential outlier. So if you look at 18 is a potential outlier. Again, we don't immediately conclude and do any action, but that is how these numbers are used to do some kind of analysis. So understand, you have understood now mean, median, Q1, Q3, IQR, and how do we use those things to find if in a particular data set there are a set of outliers or not. Then there is again very famous calculation people do to do outlier analysis. Is, let us again put one more time. This is actually standard deviation. Okay. All of you may be knowing, but just I am just to get everyone in the same page, I am doing that. So our numbers again 5, 2, 7, 6, 4, 18, 0. So there are two things you have to really calculate. First is variance. Okay, variance usually represented as sigma, this rho, sigma rho square, sigma. This is standard deviation is nothing but square root of sigma square. Okay, so what is really variance? So for these 7 values, we know what is the mean. Average is 6. Okay, how do I calculate variance? I do squared differences between each value from my mean, and I take an average of that, meaning 5 minus 6 square plus 2 minus 6 square plus 7 minus 6 square plus 6 minus 6 square plus 4 minus 6 square plus 18 minus 6 square divided by my 7 observations. So that gives me variance. Okay. So basically it is average of squared differences between the mean and the observation. Okay. So if you calculate all this, it will come to some 202 divided by 7. That is my around 28.85 is my variance. So this is sigma square. Sigma standard deviation is actually square root of 28.85, and that is basically around some 5.35. So this is the standard deviation of these numbers. Now using standard deviation also we can talk about outliers. So good well distributed data, it will follow a particular thing that within plus or minus 3 sigma, if the all 99.5 values or observations are falling, that is a very cohesive, not highly distributed data, but outliers will fall outside of this. So outside of this, outliers will fall. So if you look at 18, 3 times your standard deviation 5.35, any data falls, that is within the range. But if any value is falling outside that, so 3 into 5.35 is basically around 16 something, but 18 is above that. So 18 is an outlier in this kind of data. So that kind of basic statistics we have to understand as we not only produce some data, but also when we look at the numbers. Any questions so far? Shall I move forward?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So with that basic 10th class background statistics, let's move on. So why I am talking all this is that, okay, DF.describe, it will calculate and give it to you. But now it is our turn to take a pause and look at the numbers and understand. Let's say standard deviation. Standard deviation, petal lengths seem to be 1.765 is the standard deviation. So meaning they are kind of, there are smaller petal lengths, small, and larger petal lengths in a large way compared to rest of the things, sepal length, sepal width, and petal width. So, but it is not really a big issue. Let's say you see very high standard deviation. Okay, then you think that in this data, especially some particular flower is an abnormal flower, which is either too small from whatever the statistics and too large, then maybe it will be worthwhile to remove that flower when we do analysis. So that is how we use this data to understand data better. But again, as I told you, there are so many tools possible to understand this data visually. When you look at, when we do the projects to perform outlier analysis, there are many plots to understand this interquartile range using box plots. Then there is something called violin plots, variety of plots. By seeing itself, you know there is some problem in the data. Then you can go into deeply in that column, in that numbers, and understand and solve that problems. Okay, so develop that habit of not only using pandas, getting some data, but look at data to understand the data. That is the real characteristic of a data science and machine learning professional. Okay, so again, immediately we will not get that habit, but as you are growing into the profession, start developing that and start learning new things. That is what my message. Okay, anyway, we have done that. Now let us quickly look at some other features. So we talked about the pandas series objects. Okay, so like anyway, you will never create like this, but you want to create a new column with a column name, then you can create using pd dot series, capital S, and then you pass on a list to that. Then it will create a column of values. Okay, like say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 with index. So if you type check on the integer series, which is created using this pd dot series thing, so it will be belonging to pandas dot core dot series dot series. So basically this is a new data structure or new object type that is belonging to pandas series. Okay, so here let us create pandas series object. Okay, so we created it, though we will not create like this. Whenever we read a particular column, automatically it is a pandas series object. Let's say here I am actually reading, type checking on each column here. Okay, df dot petal length. Okay, that is a column. Like every df has, in two ways we can check that object. One is this way, df dot petal underscore length. Okay, so basically here you have a df dot attribute. So let's say you have a table with 100 columns. So everything df with that dot column name, each column name will be stored as one attribute. So we can access the columns in that way, df dot attribute, or you can also access columns using index operator. This is my df, on that I am applying my index operator and I am passing my columns name. So petal length is my columns name. Okay, both ways I can access the column. And here what I am really doing here, oh sorry, where is my okay, not here. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so here I want to check on my column, what is the type of object. So either way, df dot attribute, that is my column name attribute, I'm getting the series object. Similarly, I can index using index operator and check on that type of that object. Both ways it is telling me the same thing. Okay. So again, I'm checking whether this and this, whatever it has returned, has same values. So I'm checking with all and comparison operator equal to equal. So everything, basically we access the same column either way. Okay. Clear. And we can do all the things that we have done. Total data frame head we have said taken, or tail, I can do it on only column also. Okay, so here I am only seeing df dot petal underscore length head. What are the first 5 observations only for the column petal length. Similarly, I can put here print my df dot petal underscore length dot tail. Okay, and I can print everything. Okay, anyway, here I typed wrong. Type df dot petal underscore length. Okay, so we can do that column wise, we can do that. So keep that in mind. And let us say if you want to again see from your categorical features what are the unique values are there, then on those kind of columns you can run dot unique function, because they are holding some descriptions, they are not numbers. Okay, so out of all these descriptions, what are the unique descriptions? Okay, then I get by running a function, unique function on my column object df dot species. Okay, so I can run on my series objects all the mathematical functions and all these functions and see whatever I want to see. So basically in our species column we have Setosa, versicolor, virginica. These are the 3 unique values with which it is filled. Okay, then anyway we have also checked from an example of df dot describe, we described, while describing we have include equal to object. When you do that, we will get for the categorical column df dot describe. Okay, so it has told 150 are there, unique are 3. Top, this is the mode, this is actually in most of the places, and frequency is 50. Okay, so that is how we get that. So on pandas series objects we can do a lot of things. Then we can do a lot of mathematical operations. Okay, using your df dot petal length dot median, you can directly on your column you are running dot median function, or you can apply np dot median function on the object that is your column. Either way you can calculate lot of maths. Okay, so here in the first way I'm doing my df dot petal length, I'm using the column.
Madhu, you are not audible.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, now able to.
I think in between we missed you for a while. So are you trying these things?
Yes,
Have you
it is working.
Yeah, Madhu.
Right.
okay. So we talked about overall data frame capability, and also we talked about our series, one column, and what all we can do. Okay. So actually it is some more things are still there. What we'll do is that we'll cover the rest of the functionality of pandas in the next lesson, and also we'll do our complete our exercise. By this week, Python should be over. So let me know you have any questions.
Madhu, can you go to the last exercise? That median.
This one, this one.
Yeah. Next to
So
that.
yeah,
Okay.
which one? This one or this one?
No, that median only.
This one.
Yeah.
Are you able to see the screen? So here I wanted to calculate median for a particular column. So directly I can df dot my column name, and on that dot median function I can run and do that. That is one way. Also, if you want to use NumPy, then anyway, first you have to import NumPy as NP. That is important. Otherwise, it will give error. Then, otherwise, you can run np.median on this object. You are passing that object as the argument. But actually, we do this way more, the first one. Okay. So maybe let us complete for some extent and then we'll close it. The next thing is that you can do like the similarities of NumPy and pandas don't end here. For pandas series, operations are element wise. So one column multiplied by another column, one column minus another column, one column divided by another column. They all happen in element wise. This happens to be very useful for machine learning, especially what we call feature engineering. So sometimes in our tables, these columns, which we are calling as features, they are not worthwhile if on their own, but if we use them by some operations, using some mathematical operations on them, those things may be useful. Like for example, here what we are doing, we are creating a new feature by putting df index operator petal underscore area. So when I am doing it, a new column is being created. So far I have 5 columns. Okay, now this will be my 6th column. How I am creating the 6th column? I am actually using my petal width column multiplied by petal length column, and it creates immediately my new column in that. If you look at the head, let's go back here. Okay, so here petal area equal to df dot petal width, df dot petal underscore length. Then if you look at, let's say we'll also look at, let's put a print here. Print. Also, let us see the full table. Print df dot head. Okay. So basically, it has created a new column by multiplying petal length with petal width and put it as a new column, and we are seeing the top 5 rows. So it has created a full 150 rows of this petal area. So creating new features using some existing features that will make more sense to whatever models we are building, that whole task or aspect is called feature engineering. And feature engineering is very important tactic to solve overfitting problem. We'll talk about it, but doing that on a table is extremely simple. Okay, that's what you can spend a lot of your time thinking about data and models, and very less time thinking about coding and making it to work, because pandas provides those kind of easy mechanisms. Okay, so that's what we talked. Now we'll talk about Boolean masks and grouping and aggregating. That is a new, another more functionality that will be very handy for you in the next class. And then we will do an exercise. For doing exercise again, Iris dataset will be needed. So those who have not downloaded, use it and start analyzing the data. It's only having 150 observations. Whatever you want to ask questions, create questions, and then use pandas to get to the data. Okay, so I think we'll stop here now, and we'll assemble back day after tomorrow and continue from where we have left. So let me know if you have any questions.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, fine. So if you don't have any questions, so let us stop now and have a wonderful day. See you day after tomorrow. Bye bye.